True stories told by real people.
I've written this down a couple times now, but never actually shared it. I've only told a couple people about it verbally. I can never manage to fully convey the palpable malice of the situation, and that's frustrating, especially given my propensity for flowery language and tendency to be a little long-winded. I'll try to keep this actually quite short story to the essentials. This happened over a decade ago. I was living alone in a ground-floor apartment. I had gone to bed for the evening but was never a good sleeper, so laying down around midnight and getting to sleep around 2 a.m. was pretty good. I had been actually asleep, a small miracle for me, when I was jolted fully awake by a crash from the next room, which was the kitchen. My apartment was the kind in a large open complex where the doors opened to the outside, not a big building, and it was a nice neighborhood, very quiet, especially at night. There was usually nothing I could hear from my bedroom, so the crash just ripped through complete silence. I had 2 cats, and at first I assumed they were chasing each other around and had knocked something over, so I started to get up to scold them, but I couldn't pull the blanket back because they were both laying on it, huddled together against my hip, terrified, huge dilated eyes, ears pinned flat back, puffed up like they'd been electrocuted. These were adult animals that had moved thousands of miles with me and lived in all kinds of situations, with huge dogs and third-shift workers and all kinds of commotion. They were not easily frightened, and I'd never seen them like that before, or since. I still have one, and the other just passed. That bothered me more than the noise. Anyway, as disturbed as I was actually angrier that I'd been woken from a restful sleep, and I got up to investigate without a thought for safety. Unarmed and nearly naked, I marched across the room and the hall to the kitchen in the dark, and then flipped on the light. I almost wish I had found a burglar. My kitchen was small. The sink was opposite the stove, and there was about 8 feet between them. I kept a dish strainer rack sat on a folded dishcloth next to the sink, snugged back against the wall. When I went to bed that night, there had been a ceramic bowl, a couple pieces of silverware, and a plastic food storage container in it. Now it and all of its contents were scattered at the foot of the stove, the bowl broken. The dish towel had only made it halfway and lay directly in the center of the kitchen floor. I can still see it in my mind like a photograph.
The dish strainer had launched itself or been thrown or shoved clear across the kitchen and with some considerable force. The crash I heard was it hitting the stove, probably still full, as the bowl looked like it broke when it hit the floor, right there at the base of the oven. I wasn't angry anymore. Now I was just confused and suddenly very aware of how late it was and that I had to get up for work in the morning. I picked up the disc rack and set it on the counter nearest where I stood in the entryway, collected the rest of the mess and heaped it inside the rack, shut the light, and returned to my bed. My cats were still huddled, but looked to have regained command of themselves. I remember laying down and falling back into a fitful sleep for a few hours before waking up in the morning, hoping that I had dreamed the whole thing. I found the disc rack in the mess right where I had left it, of course. I was raised to be very skeptical in a secular blue-collar household where ascribing strange things to the supernatural was considered lazy and childish. I still feel that way, and I'm sure there's an explanation for this, but I've never been able to come up with one. Neither have the few people who know about it. Nothing like this had ever happened to me as a child, and I don't remember even hearing stories from the old people in my family about anything unexplained or spooky or mysterious, or anyone even suggesting as much. This was probably super anticlimactic for you, reader, but this is an absolutely true story that happened to me and has not been embellished in any way. Like I said, it's really hard to convey the malice surrounding the whole event without writing a novella. I'll never forget the way my cats looked towards the kitchen when we heard the crash. I've long since given up actively trying to figure it out, but if you have anything to add, I'm certainly listening. TLDR, dish strainer flies across kitchen at 4 a.m. Just read it. This is as short as I could make it. I like words.
Story 2. The Ghost Poodle in My Childhood Home.
The house I grew up in was really creepy, with everything from seeing shadows to stomping in the attic when nobody was up there, but we had something similar happen. My mom would see a white poodle in the house. She would get a glimpse of it as it rounded a corner from one room to the next. My dad and I never saw the dog. We had 2 dogs at the time, and my mom's dog was white, but much larger than a poodle. My mom and I were at the next-door neighbor's house enjoying a nice spring day on her front porch with her. Somehow we got to talking about the history of our neighborhood. She had grown up down the street from our houses. She told us that our house was the scary house in our neighborhood because 2 elderly women lived there together after their husbands had died. All of the neighborhood kids thought they were witches. Then she casually mentioned they had a little white poodle that died in our house. My mom went pale and told her she had seen the dog several times over the years. Our neighbor said she wasn't surprised as the dog was mean and hated everyone. My mom continued to see the dog from time to time. Fast forward 20-ish years, and my now husband and I visited my parents often. He and my dad got along really well. I noticed he was kind of staring into the kitchen one day, and I asked him what he was looking at. He said he saw a little white dog go into the kitchen. My dad and I just looked at each other, and my dad told him the story of my mom seeing that dog for years. They went to the kitchen, and of course there was no dog anywhere.
Story 3. The locked door that opened.
I think my apartment in college was haunted, and I never really felt comfortable alone there. I always slept with the TV on because it would make me feel not alone. Didn't help, I found the landlord's Mother's Day planner/diary in the attic that had a lot of depressing phrases written in it like, "The light at the end of the tunnel is a train." The occurrence that did it for me was one evening I came home from work to change my clothes and go straight out to meet friends. The apartment was set up shotgun style with all the rooms in a line, except for we had a hallway that allowed me and my roommate not to have to go through each other's rooms, but our bathroom was connected. So I come home in a rush and don't even bother to turn on the front room light or my bedroom light, only flipping on the bathroom light to wash my face. My roommate's dog comes to greet me in the bathroom when me and the dog, hear the front door open. It was a very distinct sound because of the weather stripping at the bottom that scrapes the floor when it opens. So the dog goes rushing to greet my roommate who must have just come home, and I turn to leave the bathroom and go say hello. Well, that dog comes running back and starts cowering between my feet. I'm confused because I don't hear my roommate, and why would the dog do that? So I go to the front door and find it locked, and no one is outside. The dog won't leave my side, and I'm freaked out because we both heard the door open. So I grabbed my stuff and didn't go back home for a few days because I was scared, and slept with the light on after that. And I still feel bad I left the dog alone.
Story 4. I challenged the spirits and lost.
I once challenged all evil spirits in the area, and one of them responded. I was living by myself at the time, and I came home and a light I knew was off was turned on in my basement. No one else had access to the house. It made no sense. I decided the best recourse was to challenge any spirits in the area by just saying that out loud, that they are not allowed in my house and to come out and face me. I then spent about 20 minutes laying in the back alley doing the same thing. I had been drinking some, but was not completely drunk. I remember everything perfectly. As a backstory, when I was 22 or so and still living at home, I would always see a black figure out of the corner of my eye in the living room of our house. One night I came home and challenged it, and it never showed up again. I thought the same logic would apply, and I was wrong. So while laying in the back alley, I saw a dark figure in my peripheral vision, but could not see it looking right at it. I thought someone was just coming down the alley, but no one was there. I went to bed. I had a very vivid dream that an old man, ugly and evil spirit, visited me and was messing with me. Normally, when I have a similar dream, I win if there is some sort of battle with spirits in my dream. This time, I lost, and it got into my body in the dream. It then took over my thoughts, and I started having extremely negative thoughts that I could not control. Did not seem like me thinking it. Mind you, this is a dream still, so just a nightmare, really. I wake up to an old evil man screaming in my face as a disembodied head floating right over me. I had what is described as sleep paralysis. I have never had anything like this happen before or since, so I am not really susceptible to this type of occurrence, but it happened. To me, it was this old man evil spirit holding me down and making my body not work. It lasted for about 20 seconds, so pretty long. It was yelling like to not understand, but was freaking me the fuck out. I finally gained control of my body, and that is the end. This never happened before or since. TLDR, I challenged all evil spirits in the area, and one of them responded.
Story 5. Grandpa's house door slamming mystery.
This is gonna get a little long, so just bear with me here. So a couple years ago, after I lost my grandpa, we had to clean out his house. Because his house was pretty big and completely packed with clothes, furniture, food, and other things, this took weeks, and this story happened around a month into cleaning up. First part of the story. My stepmom went with my dad to my grandpa's house to help him clean. Everything was normal. My dad came back by himself that night to do a little more cleaning and packing, and while he was downstairs, he heard a door suddenly slam shut from somewhere upstairs. He screamed, jumped up, and ran out of the house. He told me this part of the story the next day when my stepmom and I were back at Grandpa's house with him. Second part of the story. My stepmom, my dad, and I were all at the house. He told me the story, but at the moment we didn't hear or see anything spooky, so we just shrugged it off and worked for a couple hours. Never saw or heard anything that day. Third part. The next morning, my dad and I went back by ourselves to do some more cleaning, and in the beginning, everything is normal.
Then about 15 minutes into our cleaning up, we hear a door creaking upstairs. My dad looks at me with a told ya face, but we shrug it off and keep going. A few minutes later, it happens again and again. I think we heard different doors open and close maybe 3 or 4 times, all upstairs and out of our sight. We're trying to ignore it, but we're both pretty freaked out at this point. So then I take a big box and move it to the kitchen, which is right by the base of the stairs. Of course, I really don't want to go over there and am rushing to get in and out of the kitchen as fast as possible. And then, right as I walk past the bottom of the stairs, one of the doors up there slams shut all of a sudden. This is the last straw. My dad and I both look up at each other. He says, "Time to go," and we both drop everything and book it out the door. Part 4. My dad and I come back the next morning to try and finish what we were doing the day before. I think we heard one of the doors creak open once, but that was it. Then some movers came to help out, and once they showed up, we didn't hear or see a thing for the rest of the day.
While they're there, just for the heck of it, my dad and I go upstairs just to see if anything looks unusual, and all the doors and cabinets on the walls are wide open, which they definitely weren't before. Nobody had touched them, and no windows had been opened for wind to be causing them to open and shut. I don't know what was actually going on, but I find it kind of funny and creepy that the spooky stuff would only happen when it was just my dad and I, not with my stepmom or with the movers. Not sure what it was, but it was definitely something. My dad to this day thinks Grandpa was playing pranks on us, and honestly, in my gut, I think so too.
Story 6. The Ghosts in My Sister's House.
I have so many experiences. My best, ghost-wise, would have to be when I was about 16 or 17. I was babysitting for my sisters one night, and as I laid down to go to sleep, I felt eyes on me. I started to freak out a bit, but I was like, whatever, I'm just going to sleep. As I closed my eyes, however, I see a small, pudgy guy with bruises around his neck. I opened my eyes and was like, okay, that was weird. Closed my eyes and saw a lady with a red dress and long black hair. At this point, I was like, okay, this is freaky. I'm going to check on my nieces and nephews. As I sit down, they realize I'm freaking out and ask if I'm okay. When I say no, I'm a little freaked out, they ask if I want to pray over the house then, religious family. I agree to it. We pray over the room and move to the living room. Just as we are about to sit down, my little nephew, who is about 1 or 2, starts freaking out and screaming, "I'm scared," over and over, and runs to his parents' room. Me and the other kids just look at each other with what the fuck faces and finally decide to go back to the room. As we walk back in the room, he shuts the door and says, "Lock it!" Later, when I was talking to my sister, she says, "Oh yeah, he always talks to me downstairs about the guy with an owie on his neck." I also later learned from another sister that when she was babysitting the same kids, she passed by the bathroom and saw a lady trying to hide behind the door. When I asked what she looked like, she said she was wearing a red dress and had long black hair. Also, years later, I asked one of my older nieces if she remembered that night, and she said, "Yeah, he was freaking out saying, 'I'm scared, he's coming, I'm scared.'"